Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and respective squid. If you can see my face and hear my voice, you know means only one thing. It is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. I am Mike, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We have a lot to talk about at both ends of the English League table. We also need to get on to some U.S. women's stuff. And of course, we got to cover probably the biggest story other than the other big stories that came out, this situation with Juventus. So we got a packed show tonight. I am joined, as I am each and every week, pretty much, by my bespectacled now partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, sir?
It's going pretty good. Going pretty good. The more I embrace the fact that I'm old, the more comfortable I seem to be with my lot in life. I embrace the fact that I was going bald well back in my 20s and said, whatever, I'll still be fine. And now I've discovered the fact that I also can't see. So
how many fingers am I holding up?
It's 2, and it's nice and bright and clear. It's funny how you don't realize how fuzzy things are until someone shows you what they're actually supposed to look like. Yes, I was in the doctor's office and he asked me to read the card, and I read the card. You know, it wasn't the easiest, but I read the card, no problem. And he goes, okay, now read the card. And I literally went like this and said, and he goes, that's what it's supposed to look like. Here's your prescription. I'll see you in a week. And here I am. And I couldn't be happier.
So all those years that you thought that you've been rooting for Arsenal because you couldn't see you were actually rooting for Nottingham Forest.
That's right. That's true. I know. Didn't realize I was such a mark. Everyone said I look like Henri, but I look like Jesse Lingard, right?
Yeah. You look like his cousin.
Yep, exactly.
So, well, yes, we are getting old. I was talking to a former Army buddy of mine, and when we were overseas, his youngest son was born, and I was shocked to find out that both of his sons are now at University of Miami.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
I guess so.
Geez, yeah. His older son is about to graduate and be commissioned a second lieutenant in the in the infantry, and I was carrying on the family tradition. I said, geez, I remember them when they were infants, seeing pictures of them when they were infants, and now they are well into their college careers. Yeah. I do find it a little bit
full-fledged grown-ups pretty soon.
Functioning members of the human race.
Yeah.
In the background, we've got Byron Robb and Coach G waiting to come on. Good evening, G. How goes it, sir?
Of course, we can't hear G again because he's stuck in New Orleans.
Hey, man, I can see too. It sucks getting old, but yeah, man. Join the over 40 crowd, man. You gotta get the glasses. The next thing, I got you got me on the hair. I got you on the glasses.
I had y'all on the hair 15 years ago, man. I mean,
it sucks.
No joke.
It sucks.
I was 24. I was like, ooh, wow.
So I can't see either. I went to the optometrist. They're like, yeah, can you read? Like, same thing. Can you read this card? I go, yeah, blah, Q. Like, you're not even close. I'm like, oh man, it sucks. So it's readers. I can't see anything up close. So it is what it is, my friend. It is what it is.
Right here. Yep. We get close to it, the less I can see it. So here I am, bespectacled, staring at my computer. Yep.
And they tell my goalie that the soccer ball is real big, so I don't really have to squint that big. So
they tried to give me. He told me I could get bifocals if I wanted. I was like, no, I'm not getting no damn bifocals. I'm not there yet. Come on, man. My dad wears bifocals. I'm not wearing bifocals yet. No, you got to give me a little bit more time there. At least get a 5 in front of my age before I wear bifocals.
I agree. I would give a little, hey, buddy, up yours kind of thing. Like, I'm not there yet. So, talking about Juve and stuff like that, kind of heard the intro. But yeah, man, it's kind of salty a little bit when they say, hey, you might need this or might this. Put me in the home right now. Trifold.
Yeah, the funny thing is, though, you talk about up yours. Next time both y'all go to the doctor, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been trying to count down. Yeah. After you, man, because this is not a good
I think I got you by a month, G. So I'll let you know how it goes. I think I'm a month older than you. So
good. So let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
We'll share notes
You
on
know.
another podcast. So.
That's right. The prostate podcast. We'll do that.
Just
Man
make
over
sure,
40.
just make sure they take you out for ice cream afterwards.
Absolutely. I expect that. I expect a lollipop. And
Oh,
a
you're
phone
gonna
number.
get a lollipop. It's just not gonna be
And-
the one you.
and that's why I said, and a phone number.
Make sure that they give you flowers and candies.
right. That's right. And
So
and a
this
phone-
great game of soccer we
and a
all
phone
love
call in the
and
morning.
kind
And a phone
of
call in the
yeah.
All right, enough old guy talk. Let's talk about soccer before the 5 people who listen are going to turn this off. So.
Oh man! So we talked
Oh,
about kidney
five?
glasses and prostates. Oh, this is old. Too many old man guys show.
Well, yep, that is where we are right now. So
Gotta get on this Juventus stuff though, man. This
we
is-
do need before we get into the top of the table clash from this weekend. G, let's talk about this massive point deduction. 15 points for financial irregularities that Juventus were docked late last week. It stems from an investigation into their bookkeeping. It is important to remember that Juventus are a publicly traded company.
Mhm.
So the financial regulations, because they're traded on the Italian stock exchange, are slightly different than they would be if they were owned outright by the Agnelli family. The reason why this is important was because in at least one case or certain cases, the creative accounting that they use may have been legal by Serie A and Champions League standards, but unethical by public business standards and illegal. The results of this were that it saw the entire board resign late last year. So what we're talking about is they were doing what FIFA allows you to do in Serie A, in one case, which was to spread the transfer fees out over the life of a contract. So if you pay $50 million for player X, you sign them to a 5-year deal, you can account for $10 million plus player salary over the course of that transfer fee. But when you realize a gain from selling a player, that gain counts immediately, right? This doesn't work for publicly traded companies in that way because you need to keep an accurate accounting of all your profits and losses, which was something they weren't doing. The bigger thing that really got them in trouble was they were accounting for wage reductions that never actually happened. So saying that they were going to be paying player Y, taking their salary from €100,000 euro a week to €50,000 a week, they would take the money off, but they would never actually make the pay cuts. They were found to be in serious financial breach. They were docked 15 points, which take them from 3rd in the league down to 10th, leaving them with a veritable mountain to climb if they have any chance now to get into the champion. All right, G. Well, this throws something interesting into the race in Italy, and it also really hamstrings a Juventus team that was already in financial difficulties, mostly due to the Cristiano Ronaldo purchase, which, look, it got them to a Champions League final and they had some success, but ultimately they, at one point he was playing in a stadium that was worth less than his contract and fee. They're now going to go out there with the likes of Weston McKennie and 6 old Italian guys that they got off of the street corner yesterday from the Fiat factory, and hope that they can qualify for the Champions League, because if they don't, they are in even more trouble than they are right now, if that is possible.
So it's just kind of weird that you are assuming that Italians are bad with money. You're assuming that Italians like to hide their money off the sheets and off the books and put it under a rock or under a mattress. Well, yeah, that's going to be no different than Juve and Juve over the last couple of decades. And this is not the first go around with financial issues and financial troubles with Juve. So this is not really double jeopardy because, like you said, now it's they're a public, or they have been a public oddity that you have a very, very fine microscope, microscope looking at every little aspect of that club. Any other different, if it's, the lesser clubs, Udinese, it's going to be a little different. This can be a slap on the wrist, if anything. But since they are a public traded club, it's looked at a little differently. So, but again, this is not the first time in their history that they've been financially mischievous with their numbers and their inflated values. Now, we've all had if I could speak today, inflated values. So, like, for example, as a coach, I said that my number 5 girl has at least 15 goals, up to like 4 games. Well, my number 5 girl was my goalie that I took off the bench and I put on the field, knowing that this one team has been scouting all my records, knowing that people are actually looking at everything that I put on the internet. Again, don't trust the internet. So playing that game, and all I hear is, look at number 5, number 5, number 5. My number 5's on my bench. So you really don't know with numbers and how they actually look on paper until you have a microscope underneath that. When you have a bunch of people looking over your finances, it's only going to be a matter of time when they will get caught. And they have been get caught. So, like you said, they've been financially in despair for years and years and years, especially with Ronaldo coming in. They spend way too much money or hidden this money. And you can only tell right now that this ship has been sinking right now. And, I saw somewhere in the chat line, McKinney. Well, is McKinney part of the problem, with his inflated value and stuff like that? Are they going to, change around his contract to suit themselves? Are they going to sell high? We really don't know, but definitely this is going to be a black eye on this club. Now, it should be something that Serie A should take even more serious. Maybe suspend them from Serie A, maybe go to Serie B for many, many years, because this is not the first time that they've been kind of pulling this crap. So it might have a harsher penalty than just 15 points. Yeah, right now their season's over. Like, there's no way they can come back by whatsoever and try to come first place, second place, or even fourth place. They're 12 behind, I think, Roma right now. It's almost impossible. So this is going to be huge, 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 even for the future of trying to get any kind of prospect players in the club. Who wants to play under the scrutiny about contracts and money? There's just too much going on right now with them. And I can see them actually, this is going to hurt them in the long run, and it should. Again, you're playing with finances, and you're a public finance team with stocks and trades and everything. So it's only a matter of time when you get caught, and you finally got caught. Sorry, Juve.
They're sitting, as you said, about 12 behind Roma, 14 behind the Milan clubs. The top 3 get the automatic berths into the Champions League in this new format. They need that money. With about 57 points left to play for in the season over the course of 19 games, you would figure that in order to have any shot, they could probably drop no more than 7 points the remainder of the season. This was a team that started off pretty rough. Last week we were talking about them getting hammered by Napoli. They may have to make some sales before the end of the month to try and balance the books. Dusan Vlahovic, who has been touted as a possible striker for Arsenal, is one of the big names. He wants Champions League football. It appears that he's been offered to the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal. What do you think of this for Juve the remainder of the season? Is there any way that they can turn this around?
I think it's utterly impossible. I mean, judging by what the fact this is occurring in January, and you have a team with financial issues, and this is occurring during a time where they could actually try to recoup something, anything, and you have teams that are going to be willing to purchase, especially purchase players who are going to raise their profile in a country that they want to raise their profile. So yes, their international players are going to be looking to move. And look who's ahead of them that they need to drop points. Atalanta has been a respectable Serie A side for about the last 5 years, I'd say. They've been actually doing okay. Then you look at, they're behind Roma, who's always somehow problem. They're going to play. But then the Lazio Roma thing, Lazio's in sixth. Lazio scores a lot of goals. So I think it's too big of a mountain to climb. And as we've seen, when a club is going through what they're going through, again, because remember they got shipped all the way down to what, Series C?
Series B.
Series
After
was
yeah.
it B the last time? Okay, because I know they got shipped out. So it's going to take a monumental effort to simply try to stay mid-table. Hopefully that you don't drop too far down the table. But them finishing 10th could not necessarily be in the books. I think they would be very, very, very lucky to get any sort of European spot because they just drew with Atalanta 3-3. So, and you pointed out that they had a rough start to the season. They had been playing better as of late.
Yeah, prior to last weekend, they were on like an 8-game winning streak. They were extremely hot.
They were playing very well. And then all of a sudden you have them dump this colossal bucket of ice water on their season. This is demoralizing. This is demoralizing. You're finally feeling good. You're climbing up the table. You're looking like you're going to challenge. Now, Napoli is way up ahead, but at least you're looking like, hey, if Napoli has a couple of bad weeks that we know Napoli is capable of having, you have a shot. You have a shot. Not anymore. You just got doused by a fire hose full of ice water. You're lucky if you even can sniff any sort of European placement. Hopefully you don't get in any more trouble with your books right now.
The worst part about it for the Juve faithful is that the points deduction sees them go below crosstown rivals Torino.
By 3 points.
And Torino's never all that good anyway.
No, and so
and they're happy to be at 8. I'll put it that way.
They're happy to be there. They're happy to be sniffing the possibility of a Europa Conference League position. The one thing that, when it comes to the sort of positioning, being on 23 points after 19 games only puts them 5 points behind Udinese in 7th. But then there's a massive gap to 6th, which is the end of the European positions. You got another 6 points between Udinese and Lazio. Napoli, meanwhile, with this, is just basically lapped the field. I mean, they are 12 points to the good halfway through the season.
I also think, though, Mike, it's good to point out, though, Lecce was in 14. It's only 3 points behind, and they're in 14. So there's a jam in that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 spot, or 9 through 15. There is a log jam there. So, you could skid your knee and be in a completely different position.
Yeah, I do think, though, when you look at the bottom of the table, like relegation based on play on the field, if this is the only punishment for them, which I think it will be, because the league officials had originally asked for about a 9-point deduction. Juve must have really pissed somebody off to get 15. I know that their refusal to disavow the Super League has riled a lot of people up. But they got 15 points. But even that, I just don't see them in the relegation conversation as far as play on the field. But it is going to be a massive battle to get back into the Champions League. Even after the relegation, they were down for a season in which they went unbeaten. They were able, a lot of the high-profile players, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, left, but they kept Pirlo's, they kept Buffon, they kept a lot of those guys who were the hallmark of that team that had won so many of the Scudettos before. It was another 2 years after they got back before they were in the Champions League, and about another 4 after that before they went on that epic run of 9 straight. Over the last couple of years, so you've seen the Agnelli family, especially after the Ronaldo thing, and even during that run, be a little more careful with opening up their pocketbooks. And I'm wondering if this latest scandal is going to really have them in a position where they're just not willing to get as financially involved as they used to. Now, this connection between the Agnelli family and Fiat and Juve goes back pretty much to the club's founding. I mean, seriously, since I think the 40s or 50s, they've been the controlling interest in that team. I can't see them divesting themselves completely, but they have been seeming to take a more and more hands-off approach to the team. And you can see them fade more and more into the background. Could we be looking at a situation, gentlemen, where the once vaunted Juve is left wandering the fields, the likes that we've seen Manchester United and Arsenal both wandering around for the better part of the last generation?
We saw the same thing with Milan.
Mm-hmm.
They were lost.
And Inter.
Yeah. It seems like in Italian football anyway, that the way you win your Scudetto is you capitalize on the woes of the other big teams that are in the league. Because it's I don't recall a time when there wasn't some sort of impropriety going on with everybody, where it was just really smash mouth soccer, where they're all kind of, I mean, I'm sure this was occurring well before Italian football was on our doorstep like it is now. But I think it's
and being Italian and all, once the big guys, you have a chance to knock them down, they're going with their knives, they're going with their hammers, they're busting kneecaps, they're making sure that they are going to be down. It's their time to get back at them. They're going to get back at them. So I was very surprised with the 9 and very happy with the 15, just because it's kind of well deserved.
But also
don't forget.
Agreed. But also there's Italian football was the pinnacle of club football in the 90s. And so there's a couple of really good stories on YouTube that discuss kind of how Serie A started to dive and how they started to lose their dominance in the early 2000s. And I mean, you could talk about the players that were playing for these clubs. I mean, they were all the best players in the world were all in Italy. And and Mike, you very, very, very clearly talked about how they did not capitalize on specific TV deals to expand their market share throughout international viewing and at that particular time too. So you had this confluence of a little bit of arrogance, I'd say, a little bit of not necessarily seeing the tea leaves about what was coming, and whereas the Spain and England and Germany did. And now you've seen the fact that there is some level of corruption that occurs in this league, and all of it seems to be kind of hitting at the same time. And that's why you've seen this Italian football just sort of drop the way it is. And I think the most damning thing about this whole situation is this was front page news in the soccer world for one day, and that was it.
Yeah,
I think that's bad. That's bad. It should be a bigger deal, but because of what we've seen recently, it's like, it's kind of what you expect. Not what you expect, but it's
soccer.
It's soccer. It's par for the course almost.
Yeah, but this happened on Thursday, and then by Friday we had games.
But still, this is a big.
How quickly do we forget?
But the last time this occurred, this was a much bigger story than I feel like it is this time.
Yeah, it involved games. Yeah, it happened, and the eventual punishments were levied after the World Cup, in a time where we had nothing to do but talk about it. In this case, and the thought of Juve playing in the second division, given how dominant they had been, was astounding. This time around, you have a team that has regressed. You have a team that was struggling. We have a World Cup going on. This news came out, Friday here around mid-afternoon happy hour time, and Thursday, by Friday, we had games to play. It was a big weekend across the continent. And even now, look, we're going to move on.
15 points is still 15 points. That's a lot.
15 points is 15 points, and we'll keep an eye on it to see where they go. But, once the games start in earnest, man, who's got time to work to focus on Juve? There's matters of, will Everton get relegated? There was a top of the table clash this weekend in between Arsenal and Manchester United. The reverse of Juve, if you will, two teams that had been wandering the proverbial desert and seem to be back on track. And
Yeah.
so
To be honest, though, I find the Everton story a bit more interesting.
well, we will hopefully get onto that one in the
Yeah.
next segment. I believe we have two guests who are going to be coming on to talk about that with us. But before we get there, let's talk about this. Arsenal avenged their only loss of the season at the Emirates. They run out 3-2 winners, courtesy of a brace from Eddie Nketiah. He gets the late winner. It's the second game in a row where Manchester United have dropped points in the 90th minute. But I gotta say, Stead, this one was all that you would hope from a top of the table clash, and it looked very much like two teams in the ascendancy, right?
Agreed.
You saw fight from Arsenal that you hadn't seen in previous seasons, and you saw a Manchester United team that was equipped to deal with them. You know, got the lead through a miraculous shot from outside the box by Marcus Rashford. A defensive lapse gives Eddie Nketiah a free header in the box. It's like right after halftime, I think in the first 5 or 6 minutes after halftime, Bukayo Saka just absolutely blasts one in. Manchester United are able to capitalize on an Arsenal defensive error. Lisandro Martinez gets his first goal for the club. It looks like it's headed to a draw, and Eddie Nketiah gets his opportunity. He takes it. He scores his second. A guy who, when we talk about Arsenal and their attack, often gets forgotten in favor of Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, but he, in this never-ending saga of whether or not he will re-sign for the club, comes up with the goods. Arteta gets his win. You know, they look every bit the champions elect.
Yeah, they look like a team that should be top of the mountain right now. They do. And Arteta did say that he wanted Nketiah to stay. He was very vocal about that, and that he was like, no, you're going to be a part of the plan. You're here. And it was almost like he was saying, look, you're going to get your opportunity and it's going to come. And when it comes, you have to capitalize. And that's exactly what happened. He got his opportunity and he's capitalizing. He's scoring goals. He is threatening. He is being a prototypical center forward, which Arsenal doesn't really have. So that's a positive. But I want to say this, though. You're looking at a team that's been developing now for a better part of 3 seasons. And so the fact that this is coming together a little quicker than most people have expected has been very, very nice. But I have to give a lot of respect to Ten Hag. I really do. Man U's rebuild has been going on for about 6 months. That's about it. And they look like every bit of a team that should be competing the way they are right now. And you have to think that Newcastle's not losing, but they aren't really winning right now either. They've drawn 3 of their last 5 games. And, you know, you have to expect at some point the win's going to come out of the sails at Newcastle. So you now are sitting here looking at Manchester United. You're 6 points behind Manchester City. Manchester City is showing that they are vulnerable to drop points any given week. They're vulnerable. And they lost to Manchester United. And I think that everyone should be somewhat concerned with how much better Manchester United is going to be in a year's time. It made me smile because, of course, I'm thinking about the old days of Man U Arsenal when there actually was a rivalry about 15 years ago, and hopefully that would come back. But I have to applaud Man U. I mean, Bruno Fernandes cries more than my 3-year-old daughter, but man, is he effective. He's an effective player, and I have to respect him. You know, I can't stand him, but I respect him. And but there's I don't want to say there's something special in the water at Arsenal because I'm still not 100% seeing it. I'm still seeing too many lapses of judgment. But, you know, we have some real talented kids. I mean, the big sharks are going to come circling for Bukayo Saka very, very soon. And I'm talking about not just City. I'm talking about Liverpool. I'm talking about Chelsea. I'm talking about Real Madrid. I'm talking about Bayern Munich. I'm talking about PSG. They're going to come. Arsenal, pay that kid whatever he wants. You have to. He is a superstar. He's a superstar, and he is only scratching the surface of what he's capable of. And it's Arsenal. You've lost that. You haven't had that player since Thierry Henry, and you got to get him back. You got to get him back. So hopefully this could be the guy that you just say, look, man, we'll do whatever we can to keep you. And if that means that the Cronkies are going to have to lose a little money on a season, then lose a little money. But because it'll pay off in the end. This kid is really, really, really something special.
I think, though, that you saw that it is his team. It is the combination of him and Odegaard.
Yeah.
And for a lot of it from me, and as I was commenting to my fellow Red Devils fans, this was the Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford match. And luckily, they both showed up. Both of them had phenomenal goals.
Rashford's in great form. He's in great form.
Yeah. I mean, 9-9 for him. Bukayo Saka was not going to be outdone. I appreciate that competition between them because I think that only benefits the English national team and the Premier League at the whole. I don't think, just like I don't think that Manchester United can afford to, for play-wise, but for prestige-wise, let Marcus Rashford leave. I don't think Arsenal can afford to let him go because, and especially not to another English team. You know, you can't let the likes of Man City or potentially now Liverpool, especially, I mean, Man City are a different bird. We understand that. Like, they've got all the money in the world. You know, with this takeover deal being done, we don't know where Liverpool is going to fall into that pantheon. But right now, it's not like Liverpool have endless bags of cash. You know, Chelsea's been spending more money than they actually probably should, but there's a limit to the faucet there. You know, I can't imagine a situation where unless Bukayo Saka demands to go to another English team, that Arsenal can afford to let him go to an English team, because as Sir Alex Ferguson once said, you know, look, we're not in the business of making our rivals better.
Yeah, agreed.
If he wants to go to, you know, if he wants to go to Barcelona, if he wants to go to Real Madrid, if he wants to go to PSG, although I don't know why he would.
I can't see him. No. That seems stupid.
I can, you know, there's not much you can do. What you cannot do is allow yourselves to become, and this goes for Manchester United as well as Arsenal right now, because we are in the process of a rebuild, but it doesn't mean that we can be treated like a feeder club for Newcastle.
And Arsenal was a feeder club for quite a while. I mean, after the stadium was built, they were paying off that stadium, and they were just developing and selling and just going, look, as long as we keep finishing fourth, we're not going to push the envelope here. And it was extraordinarily frustrating for supporters, where you're going like, come on, you know. But every time you seem to get some momentum, you're losing guys, and the fact that we were sad that you know, we lost Emmanuel Adebayor, who was a flat trap bully in a way. So it's like, but we were mad to lose him. So it's that stuff's got to change, and hopefully that's in the works right now, because, you know, a lot of American fans know about the glory days, but we couldn't watch it, we couldn't see it. You know,
It's been 20 years, man.
Yeah, but even what I'm saying is, even when it was occurring, we couldn't watch it. You know, you were getting YouTube videos, and you were getting, you know, little clips here and there, and you were reading it in magazines, and you were listening to various, you know, I mean, I've been listening to podcasts for as long as they've been around. So, you know, that's how you were able to keep up. And I used to go to the public library and read articles. So that's how you knew what was going on. And so the fact that now we all know that this is a storied club, but we haven't been one. And, you know, you're told you're a big club, but you're like, we don't look like a big club. And now you're seeing the squad actually play like a big club. It's like, you can't go back. You can't go back now, because the audience you now have is infinitely bigger than it was during your glory days. It's infinitely bigger. Arsenal has a huge following in the United States, huge. And it's solely founded on the success of international players that played for the French national team back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. That's why the team got popular in the United States. So, you know, you can't do that. You have to be there. You have to stay where you are now, and you have to compete, because it's only going to get harder in the Premier League. It's only going to get harder.
All right, G, I'll give you the last word on this game and on Arsenal.
Mother.
G can't hear.
All right. Well, we'll hopefully get
now I can't. What was the question? You gotta love this Nolo crap. So I heard saw the mouth move. That's about it.
All right, I'll give you the last word on Arsenal and this game and Arsenal at the top of the table.
Well, like you guys I've kind of heard here and there, but like you guys like said, it's a very young team. To see them come out like how they did, how they kept on fighting back and fighting back. We haven't seen this in a very, very long time. This is a team that I've never seen since since on YouTube, since these kind of videos back in the day. Since I've been watching it, we've had some good runs, but not kind of like this like this number one team that we're going all out no matter what. And I feel that we're going after Man City and we have nothing to lose, that we're coming after them, teeth, everything right now, going after them. It's just one of those things that we haven't seen this young squad. And Arteta, whatever's in the water right now, everything is working out. And eventually we'll get a brand new forward. We'll get like 2 new strikers. We should be all set. Our defensive woes, once they get more connection with each other, I think we'll be fine. Instead, once in a while we get these kind of lapses. But again, it's a young team. We'll work this crap out. But we need to have a permanent number, a striker that can get at least 15 to 20 goals per season every single year. Is it Jesus? Don't know. Is it Saka? Probably not. But Saka's going to give you a 15 and 15, give you 15 goals and 15 assists. And that ain't bad whatsoever. So, yes, let's keep him around. He's an England boy through and through. He's a Red. He's a Gunner through and through. We got to make him happy. We got to say, hey, this is your team. Whatever you want, we'll give you the money for. You call the players. And I'm not saying to have kind of that superstar kind of power, but listen to him. This is what I want out of a team. This is what I want. And have him really kind of have his 2 cents in it. Yes, he is that kind of kid. He's once in a generational kid, top 5, top 10 that we see here and there. Like a Holland, he's a top 10 kind of guy, generational. So to keep him in England, it's only going to help out England soccer whatsoever. So for us to be number 1 right now, it's a dream. We're only 5 points ahead. We're only halfway through the season right now. So a lot of soccer still ahead. Injuries, all that stuff still play a part in everything. So as long as we still finish top 4, it's a victory in my book. Top 1, we're getting drunk. We're celebrating like you wouldn't believe. But top 4 right now is the number 1 goal going into the season, and that's what we have to focus is that first goal. Everything else is a bonus, but right now top 4.
Yeah, I agree that that's still the goal is top 4, but
I know, dude. I know.
I'm
Jonesy. I'm watching the game by myself, standing, and Elizabeth was kind of sick, so she's in the bedroom, and I'm standing by myself. Like I haven't done that in a very long time. It's good to see that it's my team, our team that we have this kind of energy. Like we've been here through years. Like what the hell is going on? So it's finally cool that I can stand up and like bite my nails and throw my head and cheer and go outside and yell because I don't want to wake her up. But like it's finally just really exciting to be a fan and going ups and downs. This is probably one of the better games. And I even told Elizabeth this. I go, as a neutral, if I wasn't neutral, this is a really good game to watch. It was a good game, back and forth, great strategy, back and forth. Arsenal had a little bit more, but it was a great game. It was a great soccer game.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, congratulations to the victors go to spoils. And right now the spoils is the top of the Premier League.
I want you to say, G.
We split. It was 1-1.
And both teams will be favored pretty much in the remainder of their games.
Agreed.
And so I'm looking into
Gervinho. Gervinho. Marwan Shamak.
Oh no! Come on! No. All right. Why you jinxing? Now you start throwing some Monacos in there, some Olympiacos. We'll be throwing some jinx in here, man.
Don't worry. When we get the Champions League next year, that will be coming back. Trust me. So
don't be jinxing. All right, guys, it's been fun.
All right, G. Good talking to you, brother.
We are going to go from the top of the table to the rock bottom. We have a special Stead. I haven't seen this guy.
I know. This is a real guy, though. It's a real guy. Yeah.
The only person who can hopefully lend some credence to our buffoonery, an actual sports correspondent. We welcome back for the first time since Methuselah was playing youth soccer, Andy the Hammer.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to see everybody.
We bow down to you, good sir. And we've got you're still the beat writer for the O's, or are you still moving up? Okay, the official beat writer.
When he's not on the field watching Ravens games, of course.
When he's not on the field watching Ravens games, like a legitimate journalist that we've got now. And we can say we knew him when.
Oh, that's right.
You did.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. When he was writing copy for the Maryland Terrapins, man.
Yeah.
Mhm. And we are going to welcome on our newest person who has decided to subject himself to the humiliation that comes along with appearing on the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Toffee Dave, how are you doing? Dave, the blue, how goes it, sir?
Hey, it could be better, but can't complain too much. Nice. Thanks for having me on.
All right, gentlemen, we decided to have you on together because we just finished up talking about the top of the table clash, and we've got to give equal billing to the rock bottom clash that saw David Moyes and West Ham defeat Everton 2-0. It ultimately cost Frank Lampard his job as they remain rooted to the bottom of the table, only out of dead last place on goal differential. Meanwhile, Andy, West Ham took that vaunted leap up out off the table. It's now up to 16th place, I believe. 3 points
15th.
off the 15th,
No.
right off the relegation zone. Gentlemen, these are two massive clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they've gotten here in very different directions, but the story is similar. And the results are similar. Andy, West Ham just can't score. I mean, their attack has a combined like 8 goals between Mikel Antonio and the rest of them. David, Everton Frank Lampard just couldn't do it. So ultimately it costs him his job. Andy, I'll give you the first crack at it. What did this game mean to West Ham? And can this be something that gets them headed in the right direction?
It's a fascinating question. I think I saw a lot pre-match, and I was seeing this online, so you never know how true West Ham fans these people are. But there was a loud contingent, at least on Twitter, Facebook, things like that, of West Ham fans that wanted to lose the match because they've wanted David Moyes sacked. And to me, it was pretty idiotic that you'd even consider losing a match of this magnitude. I mean, this was, you can't really overstate how important it was. I mean, you're in 15th, only 3 points above relegation zone, but those 3 points are pretty big in the fact that they actually scored 2 goals. And when's the last time that they won a match with a little bit of breathing room? So it was an incredibly important match, and to lose that would have been, it probably would have cost David Moyes his job. But I don't think he really deserves to lose that job. I think a lot of it has been, kind of unlucky a little bit. We have Skamaka sidelined again. We just brought in Danny Ings, and now first game he played in, hurts his knee, is out for a couple of weeks. It's hard, and Bowen has looked a shell of himself before he finally scored a really nice brace against Everton. So you hope that maybe springboards something. I think if you think about things the last couple of seasons, I think West Ham has played at its every player played to the top of their potential basically. And naturally at some point people are going to kind of regress to the mean. And unfortunately for West Ham, the entire team is kind of regressed to the mean all at the same moment. Usually you'd hope that you have one player here out of form, one player there out of form. Instead, it's just been, there's hardly been anyone that can really do much of anything. And, Cresswell is out of the side because he looks a step slow at left back. And, Fabianski is not as great as he was. And I don't know why Alphonse Areola can't get a start under Moyes, but maybe a little bit of a skip in their step now that, they got a win against another relegation struggler. And I feel badly for Frank Lampard that it had to be his job on the line, but it was either him or David Moyes.
One more question, but though, is you talked about the last couple of years they've been punching above their weight class. How much have these European campaigns and challenges taken out of this team that really has not reinforced much?
That was my similar wonder. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the same squad, same, let's say 14, 15 players, for all of those, all those midweek matches and the Premier League. And I don't know, maybe it, it's kind of that can take a lot of players. I think Declan Rice is kind of dragged a little bit at times. He hasn't been as dominant in the back. I mean, as a fan, you love the fact that we're even competing in, the Europa Conference League is great. If we make a run in that, it'd be awesome. But I think every single fan would say, Premier League survival has to be the absolute first priority, and hopefully we can continue to punch above our weight eventually. But right now we have to make sure that we don't face the disaster, which would be being in a 60,000 seat stadium. The London Stadium in the Championship would be pretty bad to be in, and especially with the wage structure we have, which a lot of aging players on heavy contracts.
All right, David. Same question. What does this loss mean to Everton? We know that Frank Lampard lost his job. But beyond that, where does this leave this club as they languish in 19th, just ahead of Southampton on goal differential?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in regards to this game, I think if people ask any Everton fan, the result really wasn't surprising. We're pretty bad. Like, there's just no two cents about it. Like, we are horrendous. We are the worst team in the Premier League. I've heard people say, like, I think we're the worst ranked club in the English football pyramid, which I think is a very fair thing to say. We have some individually talented players, but in terms of Frank Lampard, he just couldn't get the setup right. Defensively, we looked shambolic. Midfield, which has solid talent. I know Andy saw like Onana, who was linked to West Ham, and he's been pretty good over the past few weeks. And Gana Gay was, very talented player. Alexander Iwobi's been one of the best players, probably best outfield player. But our midfield looks like just you could drive a bus through it. And then we have Dominic Calvert-Lewin up top, who was a very good player, but we just can't create chances for him.
And he's been out for 18 months.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, that's been a big problem for the team. Has been kind of, shout out Rafa Benitez, was just a very unpopular figure at Goodison Park, but he had Dominic Calvert-Lewin playing with minor injuries, and it kind of caught up with him. And then, over the past 2 years, it's been just like, whereas beforehand he was kind of the model of consistency, the model of like health. Now he's been in and out the team. But yeah, I think that for me personally, I think a lot of Everton fans, like, there's no like, I think we're going to get relegated. I think that it's just like, it is what it is. These things don't happen in the blink of an eye. It's a process that if you've been watching for over the past few years, you're very knowledgeable of just how poorly ran Everton have been, the money that they spent, the people that they've had employed at the club, the board, for me, like, one big thing is the youth, the way that there was like kind of probably like 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of young talent in the team, and this young talent is going on to have solid success, but just because of the youth development alone, it's been horrendous. So as a result, we label certain players as trash, and we label players as bad enough. And then it's like Adam Lookman is tearing it up in Italy for one of the best teams, in Europe, one of the hipster teams, Atalanta. And it's like, oh, but he couldn't do it at Everton. We have Dwayne McNeil, and we have Damari Gray and stuff. So I feel like it's no real surprise. Anything that happens at the end of the season, it won't come down to these individual games as much, just like this general mismanagement over the years. So I think that most Everton fans are privy to that. And if they weren't privy to that, then they're certainly privy to it now with the way the board has been acting, with the statements the board has released, with just the general actions of the board and their seemingly like disinterest in the fan base, who is one of the most raucous ones in the Premier League. So yeah, I mean, I think the result of the game was almost like inconsequential, because we're just such a poorly ran team or such a poorly ran club, that it's almost like inevitable that, we're going to be, you mentioned Sunderland, and it's like that, it feels like we're headed towards that path, like, so, we're just on our way. It's unfortunate.
You said that they don't care about the fans. I would counter. I think Fareed Mushari cares too much about what the fans think, and as a result, he's made some really, really awful decisions.
The amount of money that Everton has spent over the past few seasons has been pretty high. I mean, I'd say this. When you just look at the players on the squad, just look at who they have. The expectation that they would be in 19th and fighting relegation last year is quite mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. When you just look at the squad, they should not be in the position that they're in. So I think it goes to what you're saying about mismanagement. But I mean, Mike, I'm not going to ask a question because I'm sure I want you to continue your question. But it's like, what is the challenge of getting these players on the same page to look competent? Or is this a situation which we saw with Newcastle a number of years ago, where they had some quality players and they just hated being there so much that they deliberately got cards to get out of having to play in the games? Is this what's going to happen? Because I would hate to see them end up in a Sunderland situation, unless, of course, that leads to 2 years of some of the greatest documentary footage you'll ever see from a football club. But I mean,
Everton till I die.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it.
Yeah. But they've had, what is it now, 8 managers since 2013.
Yeah.
They currently have players who were signed by Frank Lampard, but who are also signed by David Moyes. Seamus Coleman is still getting games. He played for David Moyes. You've gone through Roberto Martinez, Ronald Koeman, Sam Allardyce, Marco Silva, Carlo Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez, and now Frank Lampard.
Those are all outside of Lampard too. Those are big name managers outside of you don't have an Eddie Howe in there.
They're all guys who have very defined but very different styles of play. I have said about Manchester United, part of the problem is that you have a camel that was built by 6 different people, with the signings that go back to Ferguson in the form of Phil Jones, who played a different style than
good old Phil.
Than David Moyes tried to play, who played a different style than Louis van Gaal, who played a different style than Jose Mourinho, who played a different style than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who played a different style than Ralph Ragnick, who finally we've settled on Eric Ten Hag, who says that you will play like this, and if you don't like it, you can leave. Bye-bye, Cristiano Ronaldo. They've bought in players who don't fit the manager's style, but they've also bought in managers who don't fit the team that they have. And it's just been, and that's why I say, like, when I look at Mashari, I think he's gone after the name more so than the actual analysis of what this person, what this manager, what this player would bring to the team. You know, there was a, hey, we're in the relegation fight. Let's get Big Sam. He was qualified to be England manager at one point in time. He's a relegation master. Bring him in, get him out. But the fans don't like the style of play, so they go out, fire him, bring in Marco Silva. He's supposed to be the younger guy, but he's got Sam Allardyce's players who can't play the way that he wants to. Sorry, he's got to go. We're going to bring in Carlo Ancelotti. He is the god of coaches. But the players aren't mature enough, talented enough to handle the style that he wants to play. He's got to go. Well, he leaves because he realizes that this can't be fixed. Bring in Rafa Benitez. I think that's really where he lost the plot with the fans, was the idea of overlooking. And I think Rafa Benitez was a highly qualified manager for the team, but you can't get past the fact that he was Everton's manager and won European Cup with Everton. And that's really, if I put my finger on it, I think that's where the relationship between the fans and the board really started to sour. We told you don't do this. 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 You went and did it anyway. And that's how football fans are. We're fickle like that. And so I guess the point, David, is this. I read the list of managers. Those are pretty accomplished guys. It can't all be the manager.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not. I think that one thing that I know it sounds in vogue, but I know that a lot of people that, and Everton, like Evertonians, I mean, everybody probably thinks this, but I think that it's a very sensible fan base in a lot of sectors because, you know, it's just like, I think having Liverpool nearby and having this working class, like city and all these things, I think that by and large, like, you don't have people that are like we're going to win the league, like we're going to win the champ, all this stuff. Like, I think we're fairly reasonable in that regard. But I think that when you look at a Brighton, you look at a Brentford, you look at a Leicester, you look at these clubs that have a real strategy, and you can see a through line from their first team to their U8s and U9s and U10s, in terms of the style of play they want and the type of player they're targeting, the type of player they're trying to develop. There's a real formula for success there. And Everton, as you said, like, we're going from extremes to extremes. So Roberto Martinez had a different style of play than Ronald Koeman entirely, who had a different style of play to Marco Silva, who had a different style of play to Sam Allen, and so on and so forth. Like, these are people who have vastly different, philosophies on what, football should be. And I think that it's just, in terms of like the Mashiri thing, I think that there's something to be said. Like, he's put his money, he's spent money, but there's something to be said about, like, knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at. And as an owner, he has proven himself incapable of making good footballing decisions. It's not just about the players that he's brought in or the people he affiliates himself with, the people he associates himself with, the footballing brains or whatever, because there's just a lot of decisions that he has made that have been baffling. Us throwing money at players for no reason, having directors of football being undermined by his actions, whether it be with the manager, with signing players, and the fact that he doesn't seem to have a good concept of like what the way of a football club should actually be ran. So as a result, that ends up, manifesting in the players that we bring in, that manifests in the managers that we bring in, and then ultimately it is just, Lampard he's just a symptom. And granted, like, he was terrible. I can't lie. He was, we stunk. We Bournemouth, we lost combined 7-1 on aggregate to Bournemouth, like in 2 straight games, in the same week. Like, that's just not going to get the job done. But like any of those problems, any of the problems that other managers have had, like, it's being exacerbated by the fact that ownership and the fact that the board has no concept of how to run an actual successful team, what actually needs to be done. And it's not hard. Like, the money that we've put in has been it's almost like you have to intentionally be as bad as we are to make it this much of a failure, because this sport is not like, you see the Premier League, and we know we all British as the top league in the world and all this stuff, but like, you see teams like, and this isn't like a disrespect to them, but like, it seems like almost every team has good players now in one shape, in some shape or form. Nottingham Forest spending tons of money on making this great team and signing Lewis O'Brien for the championship and Morgan Gibbs right and all this stuff. And like, it seems like every team has some form of quality. There's a lot of quality in the world with that Premier League appeal. So to spend like the 600 million or however much, I mean, who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter. It's just, it's behooved us so much, because now we go into transfer windows, and last summer we spent 1.5 million, and it's like this summer we're scrapping around for loans when we're going to we're bottom of the league. We are the worst team in the league. We're the worst team in terms of attack. We're the worst team in terms of defense. So I think that it's unfortunate for any, and that's the thing. The thing from a managerial point of view is like, it is both really unfortunate that managers take this club on. They have to deal with all this baggage that is, inherited because the board is incompetent. It's inherited because the owner is incompetent, and also like seems to have this like egotism that he believes that he knows what he's doing, when the proof is in the pudding. Like, we have gone from a comfortable Premier League side who has really had not worried about relegation for years and years, to now in back-to-back seasons going from almost getting relegated to now, I mean, looking like the odds-on favorite to get relegated. But it's also that's why the next manager ideally will have some sort of strong personality, whether it be from a philosophy point of view, like a very strong footballing philosophy, or just like a willingness to take it on and to just be willing to like almost go against the board and kind of deflect all that baggage and really challenge the board and push the board to make changes, which is easier said than done, because Rafa Benitez was terrible, and he did that, and he got people fired and that shouldn't be fired, and he had people that like he had people that we sold Luka Dean for no reason, and now we have just a left back that can't even lace his boots. So I mean, it's just like we are in free fall. I think that most Everton fans are cognizant of that. You still have sectors of it that believe that everything's all right and that Pochettino's on his way or some, like these like absurd, that have drink the serum of the owner. But I think by and large, like Everton fans are very cognizant of just how poorly ran we are. And as a result, they're just like, even though we wanted to stay up, obviously, because we are in a very precarious position financially. We have a stadium being built next, supposed to be open next year. Fans are supposed to have their ticket prices being raised. Like, it's a lot of like precarious things that are happening. It's a very like vulnerable time for the football club. At the same time, we understand that like nothing's going to really change seismically until the people up top change. So until Mashiri leaves, until Mashiri sells the club, until the board gets disbanded, and we find actual people who know how to do their jobs, which we haven't had that for years. So
you're looking at a guy though who is a businessman who probably has lots of connections. He's also, yes, he is Middle Eastern. I feel like Everton is a club that is ripe for another multinational corporation to come in and purchase. It just seems like that is in the tea leaves for them, considering the stature of the club, considering the history of the club, considering the location of the club. If it could happen to Newcastle, I don't see why it couldn't happen to Everton too. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that looks like a big possibility. But I do want to shift gears though, because I know we have to shift the segments pretty soon. But Andy, I just have a question for you. Is Declan Rice done at West Ham?
Yeah. This is he was staying because of European football. It was enough to kind of keep him around, but this is his last season, I would imagine. Because there's two. He's a good player, and I don't think he can logic it out in his head that without European football, he should remain on a team of our stature. So. We'll see.
I can't, because I think you're right. I haven't seen him play with the gusto that you did in past seasons.
Yeah. So, and you still, I mean, he's still good. He's a good guy, good captain. He's putting on a brave face.
I get it.
But it's kind of, I think the writing's on the wall that he's gone. And at this point, I mean, all West Ham can really hope for is that some idiotic team decides that he's worth 100 million or something. I don't think they'd actually.
Please don't be.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think he's
Chelsea's worthy. There.
Yeah,
that's true.
Todd Bowley has an open check, has a blank checkbook and a burning hole in his pocket. He'd love to spend 100 million on Declan Rice right now, and they need a midfielder.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to say, the fixture list right now is going to get a little bit tough for West Ham as you look at some of their upcoming fixtures. The one thing I will say though is the back end leaves them firmly in control of their own destiny, as they will be playing a lot of the teams that are right down there in the relegation zone. The question is, how can you get from now to then with managing a cup campaign and a European campaign? Can Moyes do this, or are his days numbered?
He can do this. He can do this. I don't know. I have a faith in the guy. Maybe I'm too loyal. I mean, David knows, what, things were like at Everton. It kind of, we did a lot of great things there. I mean, I think he's a great manager at a club of this size. I think this is kind of perfect for him. And, things are tough right now, but he's the kind of guy that is, ultra disciplined. And I think we saw it with just his team selection against Everton. I think he really got it right. He didn't start Cresswell. He had been doing that for a while. He went with Emerson, somebody with a little bit more mobility up and down the wing. We saw Antonio playing, as a number 9, but Antonio was really given the freedom to play on the wing that we haven't seen that in, most of the season. He's kind of been isolated to a strictly center role, but he was really, free roaming. And that second goal was all because he was out on the wing and Bowen was in the center. So I think if you do those kind of things, this will all turn out okay. And I don't know, maybe that's a little too optimistic for me. But I like David Moyes, and I remember he saved us from relegation once. He got wrongfully fired, brought back, and he's done great since he's been back. So I think he deserves the chance to see it through. And yeah, I think the long term, you have to take the long term view a little bit. It might be some tough matches here, but take care of business at the in April and May, and you feel pretty good about where we are.
David, last question. We talked about needing to get rid of the board, needing to get a new ownership, but in the short term, somebody needs to run this team. Who do you think will take over? And is that person who you think will take over who you actually want to take over?
I mean, it's tough to say. It feels like we're all kind of at the mercy of Bashiri and who he wants. I think that in terms of the fan base, for me personally, I would love like a young, exciting manager from across the continent, like a Tedesco or someone who has some form of proven success in terms of not just like, oh, they won this or whatever, but I mean like advanced analytics. So a Marcelino would be amazing, stuff like that. But in terms of the board, it's a crapshoot. I wouldn't be against like a Sean Dyche. I can't really emphasize how bad of a manager Frank Lampard was, just speaking. So I think that unless we hire, there aren't many managers that would be worse than him. But I don't know. I think for myself, I want a continental manager. If we hire someone like Nuno, I'll probably be like brokenhearted. You're hearing rumors of Bielsa, and not that I don't think Bielsa is a good coach, but he will kill our squad. We don't have any legs. We don't have stamina. So, I mean, you're hearing Bielsa, you're hearing Nuno. Like, if we got Bielsa, I think we would go down easily just because we don't have the squad. We don't have the quality of player that he needs. But hopefully for our sake, I would love to, the Celtic manager's doing well. I'd love just an international, a continental manager who is doing well and just like letting that manager build, even if we go down, just letting them build, letting them have the blank checkbook and carte blanche to just do what they want to do.
Somewhere Celtic Cam is throwing a fit because he just mentioned the possibility of them poaching Ange Postecoglou. He's got to be having a heart attack. Calm down, Cam. Calm down. I don't think there's a shot that Ange Postecoglou leaves Celtic and a surefire route back to Champions League to go fight in a relegation battle with Everton, unless they absolutely break the Brinks truck up. One guy I think that we can all agree that I don't think is ready, Wayne Rooney. That would be laughable. He only won 2 goals, and not 10 of his games over here were clean sheets. So you're going to find yourself right in the same situation. Gentlemen, we got to shift gears, but I want to thank you both. Andy, great to see you again. Don't be such a stranger. David, we will definitely get you back on. Phenomenal job tonight. We thank you for your
great
insight.
job. Thanks for coming on.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys.
Great to see you, Andy.
Yeah,
Take care.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well,
that was interesting,
man. Yeah.
David goes hard, man. He goes hard in the paint,
man. Yeah, he really went hard after them, but I think the criticism was very, very valid.
Agreed. And I think he really expressed the frustration of the fan base very eloquently, where he's really saying, like, look, this should not have occurred this way, considering the history that you pointed out. But it's like, that is completely off-putting to someone who's like, we've been supporting this club for this long, and to see as you bringing in manager after manager after manager that you're paying, and all we're doing is steadily getting worse. You all know what you're doing, and it's I've read and everything like that, but to hear it coming from a supporter was actually like pretty eye-opening. It's like, wow, that's frustration right there.
He put together everything that you read and was able to summarize it very eloquently to say, like, look, it's the board's fault. They brought in the wrong managers. They have a lot of players. We didn't mention the poor signings that have gone absolutely awful. The James Rodriguez's, the Dele Alli's. I mean, Ali's still on the books.
Yeah.
And these
Hell,
guys
even
that,
Theo
uh,
Walcott, I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
the players that they've brought in who high wages and things like that, that they thought, okay, well, this could be a launch pad. That didn't work out. I
Yep.
think Allen was another one that was there, and he was bad. So, yeah, it was just so rough, and it's just been throwing good money after bad, but making poor decisions. And
Mhm.
and they've run this club into the ground.
Yeah.
He's absolutely correct when he talks about the stadium
Mhm.
and the 500 million that you're going to have with the stadium. I agree with him that Mashira needs to sell, but how can you take this team on that is in the level of debt that they are, with
Mhm.
a stadium that's going to need to continue to be financed, with the
Right.
possibility of going down into the Champions League, where you're going to make 65% of the revenue that you
Yeah.
were, with tougher financial constraints,
Yep.
moving in supposedly to a stadium that is, Andy talks about sitting in the 60,000 seat Olympic Stadium and that not being a venue. The difference in between that and what Everton's dealing with, remember, West Ham didn't pay for that.
That's true. They were given the stadium. Yeah, they were given the stadium, and they were fighting with Spurs over who gets to have it, and they were given that stadium. Absolutely.
They were given that stadium. They left the bowling ground to move into that stadium. They actually did go down and have to play a
Right.
season in the championship in that
Yeah,
stadium.
and the fans hated that stadium at first too, because you're sitting 30 meters off the field.
They still don't like that
They
stadium.
still don't like it, yeah. But but they have to pay for it, which means they hopefully can raise the funds to make adjustments that they need to. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. I think it's way worse for Goodison Park to be in the championship. That's terrible. That's terrible, because it was bad enough for Stadium Light to be in League One. Stadium of Light in championship is not, I don't think that's the end of the world. But for them to be in League One, that was really bad. And I'm talking about Sunderland. And so it's yeah, this is something to keep an eye on. We're going to have to bring David back a couple more times before this season's over. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because outside of, like you said, Juventus, I think this is the biggest story that we're not talking about.
Yeah, agreed.
And we need to continue to talk about it. It was the same last year, and it'll be the same. But
yeah,
let's switch gears and welcome in.
I just want to say one more thing about this, about how surprising this is to me. I thought this was over after last year. I thought that was their scare. So yeah, you're exactly right. This is a bigger deal.
They told us.
Yeah,
this was
I was like, ooh.
They paid some $60 million to go through and do an audit of everything that went right and wrong. And they came out and they're in a worse position this year. So you spent 60 million pounds to get worse. The 60 million pounds that you spent told you to sell Richarlison, who was your only scorer,
right,
Tottenham, but you didn't have money because of the debt to replace him.
Yep.
So
no. You have a center forward who you could have sold 2 years ago, and now he's always injured. Yeah.
All right, let's bring on our good friend Byron Rob.
That boy Rob hanging in the back.
Rob, before we get into the Bundesliga, the U.S. women were in action for the first time since the CONCACAF women's qualifiers in July. So we really hadn't had a chance to see them, but they were down in New Zealand last week, playing 2 friendlies. Again, a 4-0 and a 5-0 victory over New Zealand. Nobody really expected the Lady Ferns to give them much of a go, but they did get a chance to get acclimatized to see some of the stadiums that they will be playing in come July. I can't remember the last time that I can't remember the last time that the U.S. women have gone into a major tournament with so many roster questions. And I'm wondering what you took away from those 2 friendlies, and if we have any more answers about what we're going to look like come World Cup time than we did over the summer.
The problem is that Blacko, he has a riches galore in the front line. You got Trinity Rodman, you got the NWSL MVP Sophia Smith, you got Alex Morgan, you got Sophia Herta, you got Ashley Sanchez, you got Midge Purse, you got potentially Kristen Press, you got potentially Macario coming back from injury. there is some, people are going to be left off here. Oh, you got Mal Swanson, formerly known as Mal Pugh, recently got married. So Blacko's going to have an issue here, and we're not even talking about like people like a Meg Rapinoe either, who's still like there, right? That's going to be the toughest part. I mean, as far as the front line goes, who do you take? Who do you leave off? Who's going to be in form? Who's going to be healthy? So that might solve itself, but still, if you have everybody healthy, then it's going to be a problem. It really is. There's just no like, how do you pick? You just have riches, man. It's like you enter the King Tut's tomb. When it comes to the midfield though, this is the problem. The problem is that you got Lily Horan, who's kind of blah. Kristen Mewis, who is good, but she's up there in age and doesn't really, dictate really cement her place in the midfield. Pretty much the only one midfielder who has her place solidified is Roosevelt, and Roosevelt was amazing against New Zealand. She tried shit. Back heel assists, just taking on defenders. Beautiful football. The biggest problem is they have not found a replacement for Julie Ertz. But Julie Ertz has, she got traded to Angel City. Have not heard a peep about her. We don't know if she's coming back. She's coming back from maternity leave. But, while we have Crystal Dunn, who said, I want to come back and I want to play. And I want to play good. And she announced herself during the playoffs and the NWSL playoffs. Julie Ertz has been moot. We have not heard a peep from her. We don't know if she's coming back. We don't think she's coming back. You got Sam Mewis, who has major injury issues with the knee. We don't know if she'll be the same or she's coming back either. And so the only person really who raised their stock up was Taylor Korniak, who did really, really well.
I thought she was out of position a little bit. I did not rate her as highly as you did. I did not see that.
Yeah, the first game was blah. The second game was much better. They're trying to put her. They're trying to put her in the defensive midfield, and I think it can't work. But she needs more time there. And then the center back position, it's the only person that's really solidified it is Naomi Girma, who plays for San Diego Wave. She's the first name on the sheet when it comes to the back line all the time. Second year in the league too, coming up for our third year in the league. Just amazing. But this is a team in transition. The question is, are they going to still be in transition during the World Cup? We'll see when the She Believes Cup comes around. We'll see what kind of team they're going to have out there. But there's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of older generation coming off. And some of them still fighting for their place, like a Morgan, like a Rapinoe, and some who are on the fringes, like a Mitch Purse. It's really interesting, but also our biggest issue is who are watching is we don't know what kind of style Vlatko wants to play. Considering what happened at the Olympics a couple of years ago, we're really worried about what kind of style he's gonna, and what kind of what kind of team he's going to bring. Are they going to play for him? What is he trying to do with the setup? And by the time we get to the world, he's not going to get fired at this point. Honestly, he's done. He's going to take them to New Zealand, actually, to be specific. And it's going to be make-up with him.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's turn our attention to the Bundesliga, which kicked off after the extended winter break. Is tradition. They are the last of the major leagues to restart their season following the World Cup. We have not seen a Bundesliga game in 2 months.
It's like 100 days.
Yeah, 100 days. All right. We get back, and it is Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig, and Bayern, as they often do, did not restart their winter break after their winter break on fire like many people would have hoped, and it turned into a 1-1 draw. Bayern looked like they had some momentum going at times. It looked like they could have created some chances, but they just could not get that ball in the back of the net. Sadio Mane remains out injured. Jamal Musiala tried, but they're just missing that goal scoring form right now. And, Eric Choupo-Moting can only do so much for you.
Yeah, no, it was very sloppy game. There's times where, like you said, it looked like the Bayern of old. Like we know they basically ran the show, and then there was times where they looked very shaky in the back. They looked shaky with the ball possession. Kimmich, I don't think had the greatest game either. The wingers like Sane and Gnabry did not do well either. The very fact that Choupo-Moting is only goal scorer this game, it says a lot. I know he's been scoring a decent clip, but we have stars all over the pitch, and he's the only one dropping in the goal. That's not good. Mine doesn't come back till mid-February at the earliest. I don't think look, this team doesn't, to win games does not need a Sadio Mane. He's not the determining factor. They definitely are much better with him, obviously. He's such a talent. But when you have Sane and Gnabry and Musiala playing, and I'm sorry, you need to win these games. I know RB Leipzig's on the come up. I know they're trying to get back up to the table after a rough start with Tedesco. So it was an okay win. I'm sorry, not win. It was an okay game. Draw is a point, but you're trying to like really build a separation between yourself and people below you, and this is not the way to do it. So now remember Jan Sommer's is here from Gladbach. He's now who's like almost a foot shorter than Neuer. So that's going to be interesting. He doesn't play the ball with his feet like Neuer. He doesn't come off the line like a Neuer. So the defensive back line can't play as high up as they like to really suffocate the opponents. And that's going to basically change a lot of how Bayern does business. And then, more Bayern SC Hollywood news. They fired the goalkeeper coach, who apparently was really, really close with Manuel Neuer. So the biggest issue we've been told was that Tony Lupic and Neuer were very close. He's also allegedly one of the reasons that Alexander Nubel did not want to come back to Bayern. Not to mention also he's afraid that Neuer's going to muscle his way back into the starting lineup undeservedly. But the goalkeeper coach is really close with Neuer, didn't really teach the younger generation of keepers. And so thus, there's been some disconnect, and more rumors are that he was kind of leaking stuff from the coaching office to Neuer, and Neuer will leak that out as well. And let's not forget the fact that Julian Nagelsmann goes out with a former reporter for Bild tabloid. All right, so whatever that says a lot there. So once again, Bayern are in the news, for not only for what happens on the pitch, but off the pitch as well.
So elsewhere, Eintracht Frankfurt used a 3-0 win over bottom of the table Schalke to vault themselves into second. It was not too long ago that we were looking at them and wondering if they would even be competitive in Europe, but they've turned it around. They've gotten solid. We're now looking at an Eintracht Frankfurt team after moving on after their Europa League victory last year. We've asked a lot on this show, who is the second team in the Bundesliga right now? Union Berlin has flirted with it. Borussia Dortmund still down in 6. RB Leipzig has flirted with it at times this year, but got off to a really poor start. Can Eintracht Freiburg, Mönchengladbach, any number of teams have been that challenger to Bayern. This may not be the strongest team, but the one thing that Bayern has been able to do is just basically stay ahead of everybody else because that team behind them keeps changing so rapidly. So Frankfurt are the latest team to rise to the top. What are the chances that they can stick and stay there for a little bit?
I think they're good. This is a team that for the most part is stayed together since the Europa League win. I think they'll remain in the Champions League spot. And now that they're here, they're really good. They're really solid. You got like players like the French international, I forget his name, Moani, whose stock has risen like drastically since the World Cup. But those who watch the Bundesliga have known that he's a really top player. And Lindstrom had a great game as well. Good as still solid in the midfield. I fully expect them to stay here. Whether they'll be second, I don't know. Whether they'll challenge Bayern for the title, that I don't know either. But they should be here, and they belong here. Look, the one thing that we thought potentially when they won Europa League is like, okay, well, how well they're going to Champions League? Well, you know what? They advanced out of the group. They deserve now. This is a lot. So because sometimes Europa League winners do not transfer to be Champions League knockout teams, and they're here, and so they showed some consistency, and they deserve to be mentioned as a potential contender here.
All right, so the next round of fixtures starting midweek gives us a really good one.
We real quick. We have to talk about these crazy lopsided games real quick.
Real briefly, because it seems as though somebody forgot to tell certain teams that they needed to play defense. You had a couple of 6-0, 7-0. Borussia Dortmund 4-3. Like, did they get too much into the adult beverages over the break and forget that defense needed to be played?
All right. So I'll break it down real quick. So Wolfsburg 6, Freiburg 0. Freiburg just like they lost the plot early. And they were awful. And we got to talk about. You have to watch it on YouTube, folks. Look for this Rabona assist, one touch assist from Wilmer for Wolfsburg's second goal. You have to see it. It's a beaut. And Freiburg once in a while threatened to hold possession, but they could never really muster up anything offensively. And Wolfsburg just did. So that was Freiburg. I'm afraid for teams like a Union or a Freiburg that like potentially the second half of the season is when they come back down to earth a little bit. And this goal, Freiburg, I feel bad for them. Okay, they got Cologne and Bremen, another crazy matchup. Cologne just suffocated Bremen hard. They pressed them hard, and Bremen could do nothing about it. Cologne fans were crazy. You have to watch this game just for the atmosphere alone. Cologne's goal celebration song remains one of the best ever. Go listen to it. It's really good. And Nicholas Füllkrug, despite a great header goal, proving that he belongs to be the German number 9, could not save Bremen out of the spot. And then Dortmund, their backline is atrocious and their front line is great. The story of this game is Sebastian Haller, who is now in cancer remission, has come back to the team, has played minutes now. He on his boot, he had the phrase "fuck cancer." So it's a great story for the league that he's back. And Giovanni Reina, facial hair and all, pretty much scored a banger of a goal to save pretty much Dortmund, because Dortmund wanted to give this game away. And then the last game, which I really enjoyed, was Leverkusen pretty much playing beautiful ball for like 88 minutes. Xabi Alonso has really done good stuff with that team. Florian Wirtz is back from an ACL injury. And Lars Stindl is the only reason that Gladbach were in this game in the last 5 minutes. But the Leverkusen game and the squad, I think, are a side to watch to see how they improve with Xabi Alonso, and to see potentially if he gets another good season out of them, that Xabi Alonso might be contender to make a big move somewhere else, potentially back to La Liga. All right, we can talk about this week's fixtures. The English week's fixtures, mind you.
Okay, so I saw Eintracht Frankfurt and Freiburg coming up midweek. Give us what we should be looking for in the next couple of between now and the beginning of next week when we get back together.
Okay, so there's a couple matchups for various reasons you want to take a look at. You want to take a look at Leipzig at Schalke because if you hate Schalke and you want to see Leipzig run up the score again. This is the game you're gonna get goals here. So this is a good one. Bayern Cologne, Cologne going back down to earth. I'm sorry, Cologne fans and the goats. Bernie and the Bayern boys will at home at the Allianz will stomp Cologne. But the bigger games, the better games, and the more competitive games are on Wednesday. You got Freiburg, Frankfurt, obviously, like you saw. That's going to be a good one. And I think Freiburg potentially could lose this game. There'll be 2 in a row. It'll be closer than their defeat in the weekend. I know they're home, but I'm sorry. I think Frankfurt is a better squad, and they're on a roll. And then the other game I would like here is Bremen, Union. Union, won last week. Jordan Piefaut missed a penalty this past weekend, so I don't think he'll take another penalty this season. But I think Union can squeak out a win here. But don't count on Nicholas Füllkrug. Do not count him out. I think he's gonna score at least one goal here. The question is whether it be enough to win the game or just a draw. So those are the 2 games. And look, and then the other one that I'm really confused about because I can't pick because I don't know what Dortmund team's coming in. Dortmund at Mainz, who knows with them? They spend all this money for a back line, and their back line's the one that's costing them potential points. So yeah, that should be interesting. That's it's like throw the dice up. What kind of squad do you get from Dortmund?
All right, Rob, thanks a lot. We know that you are on a business trip this week, so thank you for joining us from the hotel room and keeping track. And we'll catch up with you next week.
All righty.
All right, we are going to welcome in 2 of our favorite correspondents, Professor Matt and Chelsea Mike. Matt, first things first. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Yes. In the
Is that a Jaworski jersey behind you?
yeah,
you've got the best of the 1980 NFC.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I got Jaworski on one side and Mike Quick on the other. Michael remembered the Jaworski jersey from the game that we went to when we were standing outside, and the lady asked, "Well, pardon me, is that a Jets jersey?" Like not in Philadelphia on game day. All right, gentlemen, we do have to talk about the mid-table clash that looked like a mid-table clash. Liverpool and Chelsea. It looked every bit of what it was. And I want to get your impressions on what we saw on Saturday. So, Mike, I'll start with you. What were your takeaways from this game?
I mean, there's, the sad thing is there's really not much to take away. It wasn't a particularly well contested battle. As you mentioned, it's kind of like watching, I don't know, Sheffield United versus Everton in the days of yore. It had that level of quality. But I think that Chelsea were the better side. They should have won. They did put in the opening goal that was called offside on like the weirdest technicality I've ever seen. They put the ball off the post, and Havertz was standing offside at that moment, which is just, I don't know. But beyond that, they had the better opportunities throughout the second half. We got our first look at our new signing, Mikhailo Mudryk. who looked really good. I mean, his foot skill in the box earned him an opportunity to win the game. But you know what, Matt? I think you've sold me a bill of goods here. His finishing clearly needs improvement. But other than that, he was getting himself into the right positions. You know, in the first half, Mason Mount found himself like alone in the box and just hesitated to shoot. And I think that's the story of Chelsea right now. They've got great players, and for some reason, their confidence is just off. So and also Carney Chukwuemeka couldn't stay on his 2 feet.
Well, I was just about to say that Mudryk probably should have had at least one assist, but
Yeah, but I mean, those are my takeaways. It was as you previewed a mid-table battle. I think in our preview, Matt and my preview, I said it was fated to be a 0-0 draw, and because Liverpool just played terribly in that midday fixture on Saturday, and you know Chelsea doesn't really do that well either. So 0-0 is what 0-0 is what I expected. 0-0 is what we got.
Professor Matt, what were your impressions of this?
have to agree with Mike. It was every bit a mid-table clash of two teams that can't do many things particularly well at the moment. I have just some general negatives. Front line is all screwed up. Without Diaz, without Jota, unless you're going to go to 2 up front, which I'll address that in a second, this is not working. Gapco, you see glimpses, but he genuinely looks lost in this equation at the moment. So there's that. More tactical inflexibility from Jurgen Klopp. More 4-3-3. This doesn't work at the moment. More high line, which actually probably should have cost us at least 1 goal. This doesn't work at the moment. Positives, however. Okay, Klopp is still being tactically inflexible. You did see some personnel flexibility. Henderson and Fabinho were both on the bench at the start of the match, and I'm cool with that. If Harvey Elliott's going to be the future in what is effectively a lost season, at least in the league, give him meaningful minutes. I like this Stefan Bajcetic. I actually genuinely like him. I think he was our best midfielder on the day. The problem, though, sort of leads back into the negatives. Arguably, our 2 best midfielders this season is a 19 and an 18-year-old. An 18-year-old who, by the way, judging by his last name, I didn't know what his nationality was until like the other week. I would have thought he was Croatian. Apparently, he's not. Well, he is, but passports. And then, right? I mean, we didn't concede a goal. So, I mean, take that what you will. But I have to agree overall with Mike. I thought Chelsea were slightly the better team. They definitely had the better opportunities. And when they did want to enforce their will upon us, it worked. There were a couple periods there at the end of the first half, where we kind of got the press on, but this is not the Liverpool of last season. This is not the press of last season, because we just don't have the horses to do it.
Looking ahead, Stead and I were talking to Toffee Dave and Andy the Hammer earlier about Everton and two other clubs from London and Merseyside, but Everton and West Ham. For West Ham, they have a slightly tricky schedule in between now and April, but they're running is a little bit advantageous. They'll be playing clubs down towards the bottom of the table where it'll give them a little bit of control. Whereas Everton have a much trickier end to the season, which could be problematic for them. It's a lot the same with Chelsea and Liverpool. Matt, right now in between looking at, say, now and April 1st, there's some interesting weeks. Trips to Newcastle. You've got the Champions League round of 16 against Real Madrid, which surrounds games against Crystal Palace and Manchester United. It ends at the beginning of April with Man City, but when you start to look down towards the end of the season, that run-in at the end especially in May, Brentford, Leicester City, Aston Villa, Southampton. When I look at Chelsea, they have a bit of an easier go of it right now, Mike, but the running gets a little tricky when you look at April dates with Arsenal ending the season with back-to-back games against Man City and Newcastle. How are the way the fixtures line up going to affect your respective team? Mike, I'll give you the first go with this. You have a little bit of a different go right now, but it's going to get tricky late. And given where they are, would you rather have the tougher games backloaded because you might have a chance to get some guys back from injury and get guys used to each other, but you could also find yourself in a position where by the time you even get there, everything's for naught.
Well, no, I'd much rather have the schedule we have right now. I mean, you look at it, Fulham is pretty much their hardest match, which is their next match, but that's not for 2 weeks because there's cup fixtures this week and Chelsea are not in any of them. So you got Fulham, West Ham, Southampton, Tottenham, Leeds, Leicester. I mean, that's exactly what Chelsea needs right now. They need to get healthy. They need to develop the chemistry to put together out there on the pitch. And yeah, I'd rather have those harder teams later when we've figured it out. There's also Dortmund in there in the Champions League. And no offense to Bundesliga Rob, but it would really be an indictment on Chelsea's season if we couldn't beat Dortmund, who are in 6th in the Bundesliga right now. We're in 10th in the Premier League. So, I mean, who am I to talk? But no, having this run of fixtures right now should be what they need. They'll get Joao Felix back. They'll start to, in the beginning of February, get some of these injured players back. And I think that it's a completely different side when we get to the end of the season and it's April and we have Man U and then the last 2 games against City and Newcastle, with the players we have on the pitch and hopefully the organization around them to put them in the right positions.
Matt, how do you view your upcoming fixture list? It's a little tougher now, but you might be healthier and better equipped to deal with it at the end of the season where you have the ability to bank some points.
Well, I can't imagine that we're going to be in either the FA Cup or the Champions League for that much longer. We have to go to Brighton this weekend in the Cup, and that has now become our personal house of pain by the seashore. I think we're going to get curb stomped by Madrid in the Champions League. I could be wrong, but I can't see that going one way. In theory, we should have an easier go of it at the end based on the schedule, based on we're assuming some of our players are going to be healthy as well. And club teams tend to do better in April and in May. That's just facts. But you ran off some of those teams, Brentford, Villa, Southampton. I think we could beat Southampton, but I'll be honest. Brentford, Villa, those, especially Brentford. I mean, I don't want to come on here and seem overly nihilistic, but at the moment, looking at the issues we have, and me and Mike covered this, last week, the answers to these problems cannot be found really this season.
All right, so I'm going to give you a chance. I know that you guys talked last week and run up to this game about the situation that both clubs are in. I want to give you a chance to kind of tease that a little bit about the discussion. From my perspective, you have two clubs who are sitting ninth and 10th respectively in the Premier League, who expected going into the season to be at the top, which is where they were last season. We're talking about the, second, third, fourth teams in the league, but they've gotten here in two different ways, right? Mike, Chelsea seemed to be buying everybody with this scattergun approach that Bowley is like, for lack of a better way to put it, he's like a virgin in a brothel with a fistful of hundreds. He just doesn't know where to focus. Meanwhile, Matt, we've talked about this very conservative transfer approach that Klopp and Liverpool have had, and perhaps they at times needed to be more willing to open up the purse strings, especially in midfield.
Mhm.
Both of these approaches have gotten them to a point where you just have a team that is not able to perform at the level that it needs to. Mike, you guys, Chelsea has a bunch of players. There are going to be some issues. I think that you have every winger known to humankind. No midfielders, but every winger possible right now. And it looks like you might buy another one or two for whatever reason, just because Todd Bowley never met a winger that he didn't like. And
Have they been linked to Arsenal? That's the key.
Well, yeah, his current transfer thing appears to be anybody who's linked to any other team, he's going to buy and and for an obscene amount of money.
I like him too.
Mhm.
He's the
You
guy that
like-
hits on all of his buddies' girlfriends.
Darwin Nunez, Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Matt, they all have the potential to be really, really good. Well, Diaz, yes, we've seen, but maybe they do need to go out and take a run at a Declan Rice and be willing to pay a little bit over the odds just to get a body in there to reinforce right now. So, Mike, I'll start with you. How did it get here and where does it go forward?
I disagree with you a little bit. Just in the sense,
It wouldn't be a show if you didn't disagree with me a little bit.
I talked to Matt about this on our other show, but the problem with Chelsea is that it's been a Frankenstein monster of 5 managers in 6 years, and just so many different approaches, so many different things, that it's come to a head now and they've begun to fail. And mostly because these players who were brought in to play in different systems, or who were raised through the academy in different systems, are now no longer a fit for this system. So I think the approach this window has been a little bit more cogent, but what it means is that the players who you see are not going to be with Chelsea anymore. Christian Pulisic, who's about as sturdy as a gingerbread man, and Hakeem Ziyech, who has all the passion of a wet sponge. They're not going to be at Chelsea for much longer, and they're going to be replaced with these wingers. And Mason Mount, like I said, he had the ball in the middle of the box with a side of goal and just didn't take the shot. He passed the ball off to 18-year-old or 19-year-old Lewis Hall. And so, I think there's a necessary changeover going on here. I'm hoping that Todd Bowley is trusting Graham Potter and that they're not going to look to fire him very quickly, and that they're going to build something together, because that's long been what Chelsea needs.
Matt, how did y'all get here, and where can you go from here?
It's not even so much effort, because we talked about this last week. FSG spends money, but they spend money seemingly all at once to address one of the three facets of the team. And so you do have these younger attackers we've brought in. After the season where everyone who could get hurt in the back line got hurt, they addressed the defense. They've let the midfield rot. And I mean, you brought up you invoked the name of my man Bismati Rice as, you know, a potential plug and play, you know, guy that can solidify this. But like I was telling Mike last week, if you think about all the potential outgoings, Milner's not going to be there next year. Oxlade-Chamberlain's probably not going to be there next year. Naby Keita really shouldn't be there next year, especially if we can, you know, potentially get something for him. Realistically, with a declining, you know, Henderson, with Fabinho, and I don't know what his situation is. Like, his decline came out of nowhere. He's the most inexplicable of, you know, the midfielders this year. We realistically need 2 or 3 bodies, not just one. And I know we've been obviously linked with Jude Bellingham, and the, you know, media, the hype machine has built him up as like the savior person. At this point, I think waiting for Jude Bellingham, especially because I'm Jude Bellingham and I have a choice between Liverpool or, you know, Real Madrid. I'm take Real Madrid. I think that's kind of like waiting for Godot. And if we can do some business in the next couple of days to maybe bring one piece of the puzzle in, I'm cool with that. But realistically, this mess doesn't right itself until next year, because we're going to need at least 2, if not 3 bodies in the midfield.
If we're being real optimistic, there are a lot of teams, when you're 9th and 10th in the league, that by definition means that you're a mid-table, and there are more teams in front of you than there are behind you in certain ways. Do you see the team being able to get back into Champions League qualification, given the strength of Arsenal and Man City, the upward trajectory of teams like Newcastle and Manchester United? Or is this a Europa League, Europa Conference League type season?
I think it's I think if we can stay healthy, or we get healthy, Europa League I think is very attainable. And hey, we haven't won that in a while, so okay. I think that's the one trophy club doesn't. Well, I guess Conference League now the club doesn't have. But no, top 4. Arsenal's good. Man City's good. I have to tip my hat. I'm shocked how good your boys are, Mike. And Newcastle's legit. And I was saying this before the season started. I would not be shocked if they wound up in 4th. And we have to play them in a couple weeks. I think it's actually the next match in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a tough nut to crack at home. And I'm sure they're still fuming about that result at Anfield earlier in the season, which we do not deserve. Like, what's the line from the 3rd Rocky film? You have a prediction for the fight? Pain. Yeah, what is my prediction? Pain. I think it's good. If we get guys healthy, I think it gets better, but I don't think it gets dramatically better.
Mike, are you challenging for the top 4, Europa League, Conference League, out of Europe?
Oh, hell no. Hell no, we're not challenging for the top four. What are you kidding me? We're 10 points off you guys, and you guys look like a 20-point better side than us. Like we're 10 points behind you by a miracle. The teams though who are in front of Chelsea and Liverpool, I'd say the same for Liverpool too. Oh hell no. But Brentford, Fulham, Brighton, they're 8, 7, and 6, and typically, unless something weird happens in one of the cups, the 7th place side gets conference, and 5 and 6 go to Europa. I think Chelsea can get back up to their maybe 6th, maybe pull Europa, but they're not going to be in the top 4.
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, just because your side regularly misses the top 4 and we have not for like forever, don't be jealous.
Yeah, well, part of being a sports fan is you suffer.
We could still win the our path to Europe is winning the Champions League like we did in 2012.
I mean, both of you got to be in it to win it. All right, gentlemen. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. This whole entire affair is about to turn into a pumpkin. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening, sharing your thoughts on Liverpool and Chelsea. If you want to hear more of what Chelsea Mike and Coach or Professor Matt said in advance of this game, go back and look at the podcast that they did last Thursday. Instead, this was a good one today. We covered a whole lot of ground. We talked a little bit about Juventus. We got into Arsenal and Manchester United. We got a chance to talk about Everton with our newest guy, Dave Toffee. A visit long overdue from Andy the Hammer. We got into a little bit of women's soccer in the Bundesliga with Rob, and then we capped it off by talking about Everton and about Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea and Liverpool with Matt and Mike. So we did a whole lot, lots of interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give a big shout out to all the guys who joined us. Andy the Hammer, our newest guy, Toffee Dave, Coach G, Byron Rob, Professor Matt, and Chelsea Mike, and of course Stead for keeping the trains on time. We did all right this week, but we'll try and do better next week. So for the cast of Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike, and have a great week.